but people don't realize, like, at the young ages, you want to expose them to everything,
Yep.
so they have a huge foundation to build upon with specialization is about achieving the best results as an adult, not achieving the best results as a child.
Back to the Athletic Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Patrick. Today I have Jeremy Frisch. I am extremely honored to have you on this podcast. I love your content. I love everything you do. And for those who are not familiar with you, let's rewind the tape a little bit. So just tell me about your journey into strength and conditioning, first of all, and then ultimately kind of what twisted you towards this athletic and youth athletic development route.
Yeah, so I think for me, my journey started when I was a kid. I wasn't a super academic kid, so the things like sports and phys ed and all those type of things really was the highlight of my day in school. You know what I
Yep.
mean? When I got a little bit older into middle school and high school, that led into playing sports. I played football and basketball, all the big ones, and was always fairly, could run well. I was a fairly coordinated kid. I'm the youngest of five boys, so I sort of had to survive when I was growing up. And then high school, things sort of worked out for me as far as like athletics. I really sort of gravitated toward those things, much less than like math and science and English. And so then I got an opportunity to play, college football, and I did that, and I realized, playing college football was a little bit more, you needed a little bit more dedication. You needed put a little bit more time in. If I kind of wanted to play more and get an opportunity to do well. So that's where I sort of fell into, strength and conditioning, started lifting weights and doing speed
Yep.
work. And when I played, there wasn't anything out there. I mean, the internet was sort of just starting, right? So you didn't have like this access to, younger people probably can't even like wrap their brain around this, right? But like
Right.
there wasn't even any info out there to figure out how to become a better athlete, right? So, I first started reading like Muscle and Fitness and Joe Weider and that stuff, and then
Yep.
I started like looking in the back of those books, those magazines, and you find like people selling books that you've never heard of. And one of the books that I sort of ran into was this book called Dinosaur Training by this guy named
Oh
Brooks
my
Kubik.
gosh.
He's not even he wasn't even a strength and conditioning coach. He was like a lawyer who loved powerlifting. And he wrote this great book called Dinosaur Training, and I scribbled it down in the back of an Iron Man magazine, and I sent my check in the mail to him, and he got my check, and he sent the book to me, and that's how it worked back then, right?
Yeah.
And a book, I still read it to this day because it's really inspirational book. But it's sort of getting me started on like basic strength training, things like pushing and pulling and squatting and lunging, and just like how to set up a basic program and the importance of lifting heavy weights and things like that. And that really sort of got me. And then eventually, as I got through a couple more years in college, I realized like, oh, this thing could be this could be a career. Like you can actually become a strength and conditioning coach. I still remember, I think it was Muscle Media 2000. This is like sort of like bodybuilding magazine, but they sort of would touch on performance type stuff. And that magazine actually turned into T Nation online. But anyways,
Yes.
that's where I first saw like an article by Charles Poliquin. And it
Oh
was like,
yeah.
and it was like, oh, he's a strength and conditioning coach. And I was like, oh man, this is like, so that's kind of how my journey started, as far as like, I really wanted to go to the NFL. I wanted to be an NFL strength coach. You know what I mean? And then I kind of worked my way up, did an internship at Stanford. And then I eventually became like, I worked at a few private facilities, but I eventually became a strength and conditioning coach at Holy Cross, which is like a Division I school. And it's
Yep.
funny, when I got there, I started having kids, and I started reading about phys ed and
Yep.
child development. And the moment I got to like that Division I level, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to work with kids. And so I left there and I opened up my own facility and pretty much been doing that ever since. So probably, let's see, we're getting close to like almost 20 years now doing it on my own.
That's insane, man. There's so much here. So, my I did not have dinosaur training. My go-to was Arnold's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding.
Great book. Great book.
Yes. So you open the front and it's the history and all the different bodybuilders, and it's like we would do like a quick prayer, like
Yeah.
these are like the gods that we're praying to, and then we go back to the training plans. It was like our motivation first. And
And like if you look in there, like what they like some of his guys, like Reg Park was one of his guys, like
yeah,
Arnold loved, and like Franco Club, like these dudes were strong and athletic, you
yeah,
know. So
yeah.
yeah, for
I
sure,
mean,
that's a
they
great
were
book.
like giant guys sprinting. Like you don't see that anymore.
Yeah, 100%.
And then I do love to brag on this, and I wish I still had it, but I had the last print edition of T Nation. So, Supreme Fitness 2001, I was doing one-handed barbell snatches
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it was in there.
Yeah, great. It was a great the magazine was awesome. It was cutting edge at the time, and there was some really great info. And then obviously it went like online, and you could get
Yeah.
access to that stuff. I wrote for those guys for a long time too. I probably have like 9 or 10 articles I wrote on there years ago.
Oh man.
And it was awesome. It was like one of those like if you were really into training and not like just like bodybuilding, but
Hmm.
you were like into the performance side, like that was a
Yep.
great resource to go to that back then. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. They had a dream team of guys writing for them. But one of the most interesting things that I kind of want to dive into is a lot of times when I see like football guys, like they're always football guys, right? So there's a
Yep.
certain culture around football and how we train. Like what really, obviously you had kids and you're reading about that, but like what allowed you to make that shift? Because I would say a lot of what we see on your training page and what you post is kind of the antithesis of what most people think about when they're like thinking about football training.
Yeah. So basically, I was training a lot of higher level athletes, and then I started having kids, and then I just wanted to make sure that my children had were going to be exposed. Like I also, as a parent, and I knew they would eventually get into sports and things like that. I just wanted to make sure I like was doing the right thing, that
Right.
that I exposed them to enough movement in their life, and obviously in the back of my mind as their dad, like I want them to be great athletes, but at the same time for them, like I wanted them to be coordinated and good movers and be healthy and things like that. And
Hmm.
that's really when I started reading it. And then another thing that happened when I finally got to coach, to be a collegiate strength coach, there
Yeah.
was a lot of kids coming in that were unprepared for that level of competition and divisional level. And I felt like I didn't have enough time. And
Hmm.
at this, I didn't have enough time, and two, I couldn't go back in time to fix some of the deficiencies they had. So that's when I really started like working my way backwards. And I was like, oh, well, they should have been doing this when they were like 15 or 14 or 13. And oh, they should have been doing this when they were 10. And I started digging in even more and realized like, oh, because there's a lot of over specialization going on, and I didn't
Yep.
have any of that when I was a kid. We played
Hmm.
lots of sports. We played outside, and like when the seasons changed, like you changed with it, and there was never like any of that type of stuff. And I realized like as the more and more athletes I started working with, like, oh, this kid plays baseball year round, this kid plays soccer year round. So that's how I started making the shift, was just like realizing that some of the kids I was working with, there was nothing. It wasn't I couldn't help them. Obviously, you can make them stronger and faster, but
Yeah.
they were never going to be as efficient as they could be as if they had like a better foundation when they
Yeah.
were younger. So that's
That's
kind of how I did it. And so I started working from the ground up with my kids, and then at the same
hmm
time working my way back with the people I was working with. And then I realized like if I had my own facility, I can work with all ages. I could
yeah.
do it all. And so for me, it started turning into like, all right, well, I really want to, my focus, obviously I still train high school, college athletes.
Hmm.
But my focus, I want everyone to know that like where I'm coming from is like, I want people to know that the foundation happens, from age 5 to, to 14 or 15. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how where you see a lot of my social media stuff. That's why
Yep.
I'm so focused on that age range.
No, I love that because it's wild to me hearing you talk about this because I'm assuming, you've had your facility 15, 20 years. So this is probably 15, 20 years ago in time. You're identifying these deficiencies in athletes. And I feel like it's only gotten worse. Like, I don't know that we're doing a much better job. So this is a huge question,
Yep.
Jer, and sorry for that. But like the biggest gap that you see in American youth and how they're developed athletically
Yep.
are we just talking, is it just physical literacy, movement variety, strength, something else? Like what is this gap? What is contributing to this?
All right. This will be a deep dive because we can start,
Let's go.
we can literally start day one, right? I mean, you bring an infant home, and one of the first things that they should be doing, your parents should be doing, is putting their baby on their belly when they're awake to get tummy time. Because like literally you just came out, right? You were in this like sort of environment of like, you're in the womb and gravity's not really working against you. And then you come out and now, it's all, the infant's all, they have no strength. They have no, they're just moving on primitive reflexes. And so the best thing you can do for them is to put them on their belly so they start to, like, gravity. It's basically strength training for an infant. Gravity works against them and they learn to lift their head. They learn to push themselves up. They eventually learn to roll over. They do, you know what I mean? And there's not enough of that pushed to parents, or parents don't know about it. And so what happens is like a lot of the infants end up sleeping on their back, and they never get an opportunity to like kind of learn how to move on their own. You know what I mean? So sometimes what happens is you get kids that are missing, what do you call it? What's the word? Milestones.
Yeah.
They go right from like being on the floor to figuring out, because kids get put in walkers, kids get put in like the swings and all these artificial environments where if you just put them on the floor, they're going to learn how to move. They're going to learn how to move on their own. You know what I mean? You just got to let them work against gravity, and they're going to lift their head and reach and kick their leg, and eventually they'll roll over, and eventually they'll crawl, and or they'll creep, and then they'll crawl, and then they'll pull themselves up. So there's like a natural progression that the babies have if you just give them an opportunity. And I'm listen, I'm going to tell you right now, as a parent, like our first one, like I didn't know any of that stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I went out and learned it because I realized, like, I remember the doctor was like, oh, if he doesn't hit this milestone soon, like you may have to send him somewhere to get like OT or PT when he was like just an infant. So I was like, this is bullshit, because like this is what I do for a living. So I started digging in and reading like everything I could find. And it's like, babies need access to the floor to be able to learn how to move. Right. So I read this great book by this guy named Ian Hunter. I think he was a physio, maybe he's a doctor, but he worked with a lot of like patients that had strokes. And he goes into like just kind of development of a child. And he was, one of the best lines is like, the floor is the child's neurological workshop. I was like, dang, that is deep, but it's true. That's where they learn how to move. You know what I mean? So, I mean, even from the get-go, if kids don't crawl, kids don't work on pushing themselves up, they're lacking strength. They're lacking range of motion. When you crawl, especially when you creep, when a baby does like the belly crawl, they push off their big toe. That develops range of motion in their ankles and calves and things like that. And so there's things that sometimes kids miss. And it's not like, not everyone. It doesn't happen to everyone. And, they may miss a milestone and still be totally fine. Right. But from there, you put them in these big shoes,
baby
Jordans, right? And then like for a while though, they're younger, right? 3, 4, they move around a lot during the day. Like you can't stop those kids from moving around. And then what happens at age 5? Boom, you're in kindergarten. You're sitting all day now. Like a lot of kindergartens are full day, and they really don't give them as much time to move as they should. You know what I mean? A kindergarten classroom's not set up with a 5-year-old's sort of physical ability and where they are in mind, right? So that's when that downward slope starts happening. They spend way too much time in school, not enough access to physical activity while they're in school, like phys ed and recess. And then, sometimes even after school, kids get handed a phone or they play PlayStation, or parents are scared to let their kids outside to go play because they think something bad might happen. There's just so many things that go into that. But I think all those issues are popping up, and it's affecting sort of the movement quality that kids generations ago didn't have, right? They didn't have any issues like with those same issues because there was so much more opportunity to move during those childhood years. So I just think their kids are so limited. And I tell you, one of the first things I look at when a kid comes in is I look at their feet. I'm like, take your shoes off, take your socks off. And they look at me like, this guy's crazy. And, flat feet. And it doesn't matter how strong they are. They can't stand on one foot because their foot won't let them. They're just, it just collapses and they fall over. Do it again. Oh, yeah. Oh, I get no balance. I'm like, you don't have any balance because, your feet are just a mess. You've never learned how to use them. They're not strong. You never climbed and crawled and, did all these things that you should be doing to develop the strength in your feet. You know what I mean?
How are you supposed to be fast on those biscuits?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, sorry to cut you off here, but one of the big things that I think you're highlighting is just a lack of exposure to a variety of stimuli, right? Not enough tummy time, not enough exposure with your feet interacting with the ground, of your body interacting with space.
Yep.
So do you see this continuing? I want you to kind of stay on this path. Like, how does this continue to evolve till they come into your facility?
Well, then what's the next step? Like, we're going to get them into sports, and we're going to sign up for soccer. And my club soccer coach said I was awesome, so we're going to play club soccer year round. Or they get them into like a baseball, right? And listen, I'll tell you a story after this, but because as a parent, because I want to tell you too from the parent side. But like, all right, you get them into baseball, right? And then so my son plays baseball in the spring, and he has a great season, and we're like, this is awesome. Like, let's play summer ball. Oh, summer ball went great. We lost in the championship, and we just had another week. We would play, we'd still be playing to be great, but since it was so awesome, we're going to sign him up for fall ball.
Right.
But this is how it happens. Like fall ball, like, oh, he's doing so good. Like, let's get him in lessons, and we'll do lessons all winter.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, literally years go by. All you're doing is playing baseball. You know what I mean? Or soccer, or AAU basketball. Like, this is how like people talk about early specialization, and I'm giving you like stories because I'm a parent of 4 kids. I seen it happen. I train a lot of athletes too. Like, that's how it happens. Like, you just like think like, oh, if he could just do a little more, he's going to be that much better. But people don't realize, like, at the young ages, you want to expose them to everything.
Yeah.
So they have a huge foundation to build upon with specialization's about achieving the best results as an adult, not achieving the best results as a child. You know what I mean? Like, I got my youngest is a quarterback, right? And I keep telling him every week, like, dude, I don't care if you threw 3 picks. He's 12. Like, I would be more nervous if you were dominating everyone right now, because like, I know that there's a chance that when everyone else gets older and catches up, you might not be as good as you know what I mean? Like, I love that you're here, and you're making mistakes and you're figuring it out, and we're training we're training your ability to, you know what I mean? And also, like, when the season's over, like, we're not going to go do 7-on-7. We're going to go play basketball, because I know basketball is going to be great dribbling and agility and the conditioning that you do when you play hoops. Like, that's all going to culminate. So you're a really good quarterback if you choose, right? You might choose to be a point guard when you're 17 or 18, or, play center field. Whatever it is, we're going to give you all the tools right now to build those things up to become really good later on. And we don't care what's happening right now. So I think, the early specialization is a huge, huge thing. huge thing. And then you're going to see soon, waiting in the wings. You can probably see it now on the social media. There's this, because training, like we train athletes. There's sort of this new thing coming on the horizon where young athletes are training like adults, and
Yep.
and we're almost what's the word? Early intensification. You're going to start to see that start to rise, right? Because parents are going to get wind of like, oh, we can send our kid and do all this extra training, and if if my 10-year-old football player trains like Tom Brady does or whatever, whoever it is, right? The star right now, then he's going to be exactly like that again. And now doing all this intensive stuff, one, you could lean the burnout of the kid. The kid's going to be like, this is just, like, I'm not ready for this and it's too much. Or two, you sort of like, you peak too early.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You peak too early and it's like, because you did all this intensive training early on when that stuff should have been layered in when they're like just becoming like later teenage years or so, so on. So that's another kind of thing on the horizon you'll start to see is early intensification. And with those two,
I feel like,
it's bad.
Go ahead. I feel like the Little League World Series should have kind of like tipped us off to this, because a lot of those elite 11-year-old pitchers, like, where are they in the pros? Like, they're not. A lot of them are not making it. There's a couple directions we can bounce off of this. So the one I want to start though is right where we left off. Is I get inquiries all the time of my 9-year-old's lost the step. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, your 9-year-old like losing a step. Like, what do you mean? Like maybe one kid like hit early puberty or something. But we're so obsessed with the numbers and the metrics, right? So I want to talk like, what do you think this cost is going to be of chasing metrics for like a 10-year-old versus actually building a foundation that's going to serve these athletes at 18? And I think, just a riff before I kind of cut you loose with this, like, I talked to somebody a couple weeks ago on the podcast, Hank Kryanov. So he's old sprint coach, but he said something, he's tons of great information. But the one thing he said that just like has been in my mind is he talked about working with one of his sprinters. And he's like, I started working with her at 16 and, she was so young. We didn't really know what her potential was. And my first thought was like, my God, like if you're in the United States and you are not looking D1 ready by 16, you're toast. Like you're overlooked. Just the thought of having that like broad of a lens when it comes to athletic development was just so, I was jealous kind of, right? Because we're so grinding. But again, like, what do you think we're going to run into with this early intensification of, 10-year-olds and metrics and training like the pros? What are we leaving on the table that they're not going to be able to really accomplish?
Well, like I said, so one of the things is like the kid needs to like have the intrinsic motivation to want to even be there, right? And Absolutely. So a lot of time, and sometimes it's not that kid. The kid's getting pushed into it from the parents or the club or whoever he's playing for. Mm-hmm. So that's eventually going to fizzle out, right? When we talk about burnout, that's one thing. Second, the thing we just talked about was to go along with that, at age 10, even 11, 12, like the training that they're doing should be extremely enjoyable, right? The stuff that they're doing should be fun in the name of fun, right? So what happens is this: they enjoy training, they like to come, they like to go do those things, right? And then eventually they mature a little bit and they'll because they liked how they felt when they were moving and doing those things, they make the shift towards more organized training, right? Because they know, but they were exposed to it when they were this age and it was fun. And then we slowly made that shift into those like teenage years where things got more organized and like, but we didn't, wasn't like, you're going to go do this and you're going to be super specialized or super, this intense, like sort of training program that all these older kids are doing. That's not how you do it. It's like this slow shift from fun and like fundamentals to more organized and more intensive, right? And that's how you get kids to continue on and to do those things because, well, one, when they did it, when they were young and the training that we did was fun and they saw results, like they sort of got better at their sport and they liked how they felt when they moved and all these things like
Yep.
they take that with them into their into their teenage years. If all they think about was how hard stuff was when they were younger, right? When they were 11, 10, 11, oh, we did this like intensive training and it was the hardest thing in the world.
Yeah.
I didn't want to even be there. That's when you end up burning out. And finally, like the other thing is like you get kids doing like these heavy lifts and like super intense training. Like how's their body going to be when they're like 18, 19, 20? Like having done like high intensity lifts and all these like different types of plyometrics and things like that. Like I don't know. I know that when I got done with college football and I kept training for like a few years after, like my body's like training helps you, like intensive training obviously improves your performance, but at the same time, it slowly beats up your body. Uh, as much as I love strength and conditioning, there's like if you train at a certain intensity and train hard all the time, you're gonna break down, even though there's a point where your performance improves, but there's this slow kind of wearing away of other parts. My knees feel that now as a 49-year-old. You know what I mean? So, anyways, like
Yeah.
when I think when there's this intensive training early on, the injuries or the things that come along with intensive training kind of rear their head earlier. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? You don't. That's why I think like intensive training should really start like late high school and into college, so you
Hmm.
get the benefit of that performance training through those important years, and then you can figure out what you want to do after you're done playing. Whether if you go pro, great, but most kids don't go pro. Then you figure out what you want to do, later on. So yeah, I think
Okay.
there's a lot of downside to early intensification. Um, and I it drives me crazy when I see it and kids not having fun in their training in those early years, because I know that they're not going to stick with it if they're not enjoying it when they're younger.
You're going to be the guy actually handing out math books now, man.
Right? Yeah, I know.
uh, so I love what you're saying. I'm nodding my head. I'm in agreement. I feel like every professional, instinctively in our field, understands, the consequences of early specialization, um, the risk of the burnout, the potential damage that we're doing just by having more wear and tear on these young athletes. But we're up against, or at least you're kind of the villain in this scenario of these parents who are hearing the coach in their ear of how great their 10 and 11-year-old is at sport, and the need, or they hear that, hey, little Johnny is getting hitting lessons, we don't want our son to get behind. So
Yeah,
what is I mean, now you're well established, but early on, and there's probably still parents that you maybe have to have these conversations with. How are you getting people to come to the dark side, so to speak, and really appreciating the runway that you're developing versus just getting the best results as a 10-year-old now?
sure. So I've been on this platform for a long time,
Yeah.
but it took a while. One, I think, um, you know, having a few years of working with young athletes and then come up through the ranks and see their success. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So I mean, it's not a huge population, but like even in our hometown, I feel like we've had a really good run of like high school sports, and we've had a
Mm.
really good run of kids going to college. And I know a lot of those kids were lucky enough to start early and do a lot of like early training, like sort of our Speed Demons program, and
Yep.
our program where we like really focused on having fun and developing coordination and balance and those things. And those kids sort of stuck with it and kept going through those years and sort of were very, very, very consistent with their training. And also, it is possible to be consistent with training and also like play your sport and go to lessons if you want to do those type of things. And
Mm-hmm.
you can do all that stuff. You know what I mean? So I think really for those kids that were coming through, what I've had over the years. It's like the consistency of them coming to the gym and doing all those things that they should do over time and getting more sort of advanced as they go. You know what I mean? So I think that's helped me a lot, is just having kids, because now the younger parents see like these kids and what they've done, and then we get more and more the people to listen. And then also, like, my own kids, have their friends, and I get to know their parents, and I've been able
Yep.
to like say, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is why we do it, and they read my posts and talk to me about it, and so I think in that respect, it's been really good. I mean, I try to tell people, like, I have a son who's in college, playing college football right now, and he's almost a 500-pound squatter and a 350-pound clean. I mean, he's got legitimate like strength for an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah,
And,
that's insane.
he got serious about lifting weights around his freshman year. Before that, it was sort of like he did it here and there. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
came to all my kids' classes. We did a lot of running around. We played a lot. We wrestled a lot. We played lots of sports. I can tell you, I had a team that I coached for football, youth football. We went down to Florida in seventh grade. He was in seventh grade. The other guys, the kids on the team, were eighth grade. I mean, he was below average on our team. Do you know what I mean? And so like, it all changed when
Yeah.
he developed and put the time in, and it was the right time for him to start training. I have another son who's probably going to play college football, but he started, like, maybe got real serious about lifting a little bit later. And I have another kid, not my kid, but a kid I work with that's real good friends. This kid started training, like, really, he was a little bit more mature, and he started training hard in like seventh grade. So it all, you know what I mean? So I have sixth grade girls who are like play soccer, who are like super mature for their age, and
Yeah.
I almost have to. Some of them I have to pull back and be like, "Hey, let's have some fun," because I know you want to train really hard, and I know what you hear from your peers and the clubs you play against and the tournaments that you play against, and I know you want to, like, you're sort of, you want to push and grind, but also I want you to remember, like, you're here to, like, relax and, get away from your coaches and everyone else and just have fun too. You know what I mean? So the whole thing of, like, there's a certain age to start training is not necessarily true, because
Right.
it comes down to the athlete and when they're ready to, like, sort of get more intensive and more organized. You know what I mean? And that happens a lot too with kids. Like, say you get like a kid who's really big, like he's just naturally a big
Yeah.
dude. Like, people think like, oh, he's ready to go to really start training hard and heavy, but like emotionally and mentally, spiritually, that dude might be like fifth grade still.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's not even there.
Yeah.
He needs
I got an athlete in my head right now. I know that guy.
Yeah. You need that kid still needs more fun time and more play time and more relaxed time, and less like, oh, you need to be doing this stuff, and just give him a little chance, give him a chance for those other parts of him to catch up to his physical maturity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Do you have a story maybe, or does anybody come to mind? They've been sucked in this vortex of club sports.
yep.
They're 11 years old. They're on a threes or a fours team at the club, and their parent is like, "We want them to go. This athlete wants to play at a higher level." I mean, this conversation of like, "Hey, we're trying to make you the best athlete long term, not the best athlete tomorrow," which is kind of what you've alluded to. Like, hey, my kids were average for a while. They hung with
Yeah.
it, but I see some kids, they maybe get discouraged by not rising the ranks. And again, this kind of goes back to this performance mindset, keeping up with the Joneses. Like, do you have a situation where an athlete, like, either maybe A was like, hey, we're not doing this. Like, we want to try something else, and then come back to you and be like, oh yeah, you were actually really right about this. Does anything come to mind? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here.
You know what happens a lot with me is I get kids that come in early, and then they'll sort of like, they'll enjoy it, but for whatever reason, whether they get really busy with club sports, or just the timing doesn't work. And I've had so many kids like not come back for 3-4 years, and then they come back and like, age 13 or 14, and the parents like, oh, like, yeah, we realize like the rat race we're in is not where we want to be. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because you like all that practice time, and they only get incrementally better, and they realize like the things that they're missing is this like physical foundation. If you they realize like, oh, the reason why this kid's beating everyone right now is because he's just faster than everyone and
Yeah.
stronger than everyone. You know what I mean? So it's like you get they sort of sometimes they see the light, and we're like, all right, well, now they understand like, oh, there's a physical side to sports. It's like three things. It's physical, and then it's technical, and then it's tactical, and in that order, right? And if you don't do that order, if you jump right into like trying to teach someone the technical without having the physical, if you don't,
Mm-hmm.
if you have an athlete that's like can't do a squat in good range of motion or a lunge, and they fall over or they can't balance on one foot, like how do you ever expect them to like be able to kick a soccer ball efficiently or be able to swing a baseball bat? Like I always say, like all these kids play baseball, they play little league baseball or club baseball, and they can't hang from a bar for 30 seconds. It's
Yeah.
like, dude, you're playing a sport where like you're holding an implement and throwing a ball with your hand and your arms and shoulders, and you can't do this like basic minimal thing, right? So as I always tell, like try to get it across people, like it's physical first. Then if you want it, like, if you can't have that physical part in place, you'll be able to learn the technical stuff. And then once you
Mm-hmm.
learn the technical stuff, when your coaches can teach you your tactical stuff, you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
like another example, like I got a kid right now. He's like he plays defensive end in high school football, right?
Yep.
Like he needs to be able to, take on a blocker with one hand and be able to like, basically strong arm a guy and then go try to make a tackle. If he's not strong enough and has good range of motion and be able to do that, like you can't even teach him that technique. And then if he can't do that technique, he's not going to fit into the scheme of, the defense where what like the stuff he needs to do on the field. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
it's like the physical, technical, tactical, and that's the order. And they can all develop at the same time, but you need to be they all need to be in the right place.
Yeah, to me, that becomes really relevant because a lot of the physical that I feel like maybe guys from our generation developed was like, you want to talk about high intensity plyos? Like we were jumping out of trees, man. Like, oh, look at that limb. Like that's, we were swinging and doing backflips off the swing. Like we were,
100%.
it was just like random exposure. And, we did it till we were tired of doing it. Like there weren't sets and reps. And I
Yeah,
feel
and
like
I always
that's lost.
I always loved like the kid that I hated the most, or like was the kid who could like rip up the tree and like climb a tree like it was nothing. I'd be like, dude, how do you do
Yeah.
that? Because I remember being kind of a tall, like kind of goofy kid, and like that stuff was always hard for me, like the climbing up to the tree. Like I could jump off anything and run. I used to like sprint and jump over things and things like
Hmm.
that. But yeah, like that kid I used to love, like because he was just in my eyes like being able to climb up on stuff like that just showed like such strength and ability,
Hmm.
but I used to like go to my brother's like track meets when I was like a little kid. I'd be in like third grade, and I go to my older brother's track meets, and I'd see them doing like hurdles and high jump, and I
Yep.
would come home. I would come home and set that stuff up in my house. Like I remember in our attic we had like a bunch of old mattresses, and I had my own high jump pit,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
I would have like chairs outside I'd set up as hurdles. You know what I mean? So I mean, I still think I was just destined to do this job because of growing up, all the things I saw and was exposed to. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah.
and and I think for my own kids, like they they don't have a real problem with training because
Hmm.
they've spent their entire life not even doing it. Like not that I made them do it, they just watched it.
Hmm.
Like they see all these kids training and sort of for that, and they see little kids play, like even when they were like really young, before they could even do my classes, they watched kids running around and climbing on things and doing all that stuff. And so for them it was just an easy transition, like, oh, we want to do that. You know what I mean? So I think just like exposing kids to as much as possible is really where you're going to see the biggest benefit.
Yeah. And I have a question about the design of your sessions
Yep.
because I look at them from afar and I'm like, this guy is an absolute mastermind. And there were years ago I tried to do something with younger kids, you know, modeled probably somewhat after what you're doing, and I'm like, I am not even close to this guy's level. So I'm curious, like, what is your thought process when you're developing this stuff? Because it's not just random organized play. Like there's skills and the physical aspects that you talk about that are like just neatly embedded into what you're doing. So, I mean, I would just kind of like to peek behind the curtain a little bit and just hear how you kind of think of some of this stuff or develop it or just, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll tell you what. One thing, like the 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 social media posts sort of ties it a little bit. There's a lot of like downtime between
Sure.
activities too. You know what I mean? Which,
Oh yeah.
believe it or not, if you came to my facility, that's my favorite time. When I'm setting up something new, the
Mm-hmm.
kids are still just playing on their own, like over on the mat. You know what I mean? Which is for parents, they're always like, oh, they don't realize the magic that's happening, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what's going on when I'm setting up something new. But um, but yeah. So when I set things up, when I look at some type of activity I want to do with the kids, I'm
Mm-hmm.
still thinking like speed or
Okay.
strength, right? I'm still thinking that stuff. I just need to figure it out in a way that's the kids are going to enjoy, and
Mm-hmm.
that and when they do it, they'll give their best effort, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like if I put the crash, like that's why a crash mat works great, because I know that like I can get a really good acceleration with for a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to end with a dive into the crash mat. So that's the way I look at it. I'm like, all right, this crash mat's a great tool to work speed,
Mm-hmm.
not so much gymnastics or doing flips or anything yet. In this
Right.
particular instance, this crash mat's awesome for me to develop like their ability to accelerate, and this is like as young as 4 or 5. You know
Oh,
what I
that's
mean?
crazy. Yeah.
This box or this, like I have these like ramps. Like a ramp is great because it's like, it launches a kid up even higher than they would normally jump off the ground. So I'm thinking, all
Mm-hmm.
right, like plyometric landing, like absorbing force. Like I still think the same way as if I would like an 18 or 19-year-old like football player. We're gonna do some type of like force absorption, like depth drop,
Mm-hmm.
like right. I would still think that way, just in sort of a more kid friendly way, right? So
Yeah.
um, that's why I like the having lots of like the flooring, like we have tons of like just roll out mats.
Yeah.
Like the mats are probably my best thing to have, right? Because the kids can fall and roll and learn how to like kind of manipulate their body in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think like strength, right? Strength's like, how do we develop strength? Well, like climbing on things or hanging on things or traversing things. Like that's the way for a kid, that's the way I look at developing some type of like upper body strength. Lower body, I think about like them wrestling or like pushing and pulling a medicine ball, like wrestling over a medicine ball, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I still think of it as the same way as I do an older athlete. I'm just looking for kid friendly ways to do it. And then a lot of times what happens is like I'll do one activity, and then that activity, like I just sit there and watch, and like 10 other things pop into my head that I can do similar to that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I think I will say that I probably have I'm probably, my strength falls under creative side,
Mm-hmm.
and I can tell you right now my organizational side sucks. Terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
terrible. So I guess we all have our strengths and weaknesses. I would definitely say my creative side is good, because I never write anything down either. Like, and I probably should. You know what I mean? I guess that's why
Mm-hmm.
having a cameras there is great, because you get it all on film, and I probably have 16 years of activities on my phone, of doing all different types of stuff. So
Uh,
but it is cool, like when you come up with something and then you just kind of watch it and see the kids do this or that. A lot of times the kids will do something and be like, they'll give you an idea, they'll do something
yeah.
totally that you weren't expecting, and that send you another. I remember one of the kids one day, they grabbed a pool noodle, and they like sort of like ran at each other, and like it was almost looked like a joust.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, shit, noodle joust, dude, that is perfect. And then the next day I had like 10 kids chasing each other doing noodle joust. And it
Yeah.
was awesome. And then I was like, all right, if you get hit in the leg, you got to hop on one foot. You know what I mean? And so they're trying to joust with each other on one leg. So now we're hopping. We're
Yeah.
working. Yeah. So there you go. It's like these little things sort of always pop up the more you do it.
Yeah.
And you just keep an open mind. And you know what? I study I scour Instagram or YouTube, or I have I can't tell you how many old phys ed books from like the 60s and 70s and stuff. I have
Oh,
so
wow.
many of those books. I scour through them because I want to find more stuff. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of fun too.
No, I think that's great. That like the agility of tag cannot be understated, right? And
No.
variations of it. And you kind of alluded to this earlier, but we kind of played outside. We had our own games, right? It's like, what are we going to do today? Like my ball's
Yep.
flat and I don't got a pump. Like, well, we got this crushed can, so like let's play
Yeah.
this kind of hockey with our feet or something. So are there times where it gets a little democratic there, where you've got the athletes weighing in of like, hey, we want to do this, or like let's try these rules,
Sure.
this rule set with things?
Yeah, because especially when the kids find something they really like, they just want to come in and do that all the time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah, they just want to do that all the time. So one of the big games it's called, like, I don't even know why we call it this, but it's called Alien Tag. And I have to run around with the pool noodle and hit the kid in the ankle. If you get hit in the ankle, and the reason I'll tell you the reason why the ankle in a second, but if you get hit in the ankle, you have to go sit on the crash mat and you're in jail. But then your friends can get you out. They can tag you out and you can have a jailbreak or whatever. But anyways, one of the things that came up was like the first day I did it, I swung the pool noodle really low and a kid just like leaped up in the air and jumps. And I was like, all right, we're going to always go for the ankle because I want these kids to be like accelerating and then leaping off the ground and landing.
Yeah.
And so that was like one of those like aha moments. Like, yeah, we're going to swing low to get the kids to jump off the ground, get some air. You know what I mean? So yeah, the kids will definitely always like gravitate towards a game they really love. But that's when you sort of like, all right, well, we're going to do this, this, and this to get to that, right? So you don't. They'll do other stuff knowing that that's coming down the line. Like we have a game, pickle. Everyone's in the middle. You throw the ball back and forth. We call it runners and gunners now, but it's basically pickle like we were a kid, and like they love that game, and they would probably play it for a full 45-minute class. You know what I mean? But I like to do other stuff first, and then we get to that at the end. You know what I mean? And they love it just as much. So yeah, it's cool stuff.
Yeah. So I want to ask a question because we have some athletes that come in. They're young. They're probably in the age group that would do some of these things that you guys are doing. And they kind of lack confidence, right? Maybe they're slow on the court because they recognize they're not as fast as other athletes. They don't want to feel silly trying and coming up short.
Sure.
How do those kids take to the environment that you have? Because I feel like when you gamify things, all those preconceptions and hesitations that people have just kind of crumble. Like, are they able to open up? Are they able to just express movement very freely? Are they able to just be fast in that context? Do they feel like more invited to move and to explore just higher outputs without worrying about it?
Yeah, I think sometimes too, like with some of the activities we do too, is not always super competitive. You know what I mean? If I just set up an obstacle course, like the kid who's a stud athlete can just rip through it as fast as he can. But if a kid that comes in is like maybe a little bit like not as skilled or not as coordinated, they can still go their own pace and sort of figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I try not to like always just have it make a race or make it that doesn't always have to be competitive. So that's like one way, and that's why I really like obstacle courses.
Yeah.
The way we set them up is just like it's a big loop, and so you can be at any stage of your development, and you figure out your way to get over, get over or up and around or under whatever it is we're doing. Figure out your best way to do those things. You don't have anyone like, you have to worry about anyone seeing you lose or falling down, anything like that, because everyone's just kind of going. So That's one way to do it. Another way I do it too, if we do have a game, I'll take the really stud kid because he doesn't care. Like the kid who's there's always that kid, right? He's just
Right.
the stud of the group.
Mm-hmm.
That kid wants a challenge, right? Always. So
Yep.
I'll put him with like some of the kids who aren't great, and he's almost like their protector. He's their leader. He'll bring those kids up. We'll play like team tag, and I'll take the 2 or 3 worst kids and put them with the best kid, and then have the medium level kids their own team. You know what I mean? And that kid gets pumped. Like he's like, yes, let's go. Cause like these dudes over here think there's something, but I know I'm the best kid, but at the same time, like he'll look after some of the kids that maybe not as skilled. Right. And so now and those kids are now feel comfortable because they know they got their alpha on the team. So that's always a fun dynamic to watch too, because I've had some really athletic kids come through our doors, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some kids that are not super athletic, but developed later on, So like having them be in an environment where they felt comfortable was very important because it kept them coming back and it got them more exposure over time.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's cool. I think that's really great because I mean that's a for real challenge, and I think
no doubt.
There's so many athletes. I just had a conversation with a parent, recently. Is like, hey, they want her to improve her speech. She's now a freshman in high school, and I'm like, I really think like a lot of it is just a confidence issue of like, being able to express herself as much as possible. And I think it's almost just opportunity, or just like gently inviting people to these athletes to do this stuff and actually develop. Because I mean, in our setting, it can be a challenge, like getting them, like kind of trying to finesse that out of them. So I think that's huge. But I do want to talk about some of your high level athletes because I think I reshared a post this week that you had. I mean, this dude was a high school baseball player cleaning like 300. I mean, that's serious.
He's a
like
180 pound pitcher. He cleans 300, squats 400 pounds. Yeah. But I can tell you, he's been coming to me consistently since 6th grade. And again, same thing. We did a lot of like I could send you videos of him just doing fun stuff like bear crawls and climbing on the ropes and doing dives and catches and skips, and he spent many years doing that stuff. I will tell you this too. He's always been since he was a little, I'll tell you what, when the kids were little and he pitched, we all were always excited because we knew the game was going to go by fast because he threw strikes. Like youth baseball is the worst.
Oh, there's like a 2 or 3 year gap where it's tough. Oh, it's real tough. Like, we've been through it.
Yep. So it's like, I remember when my kids were little, and like we'd be like, oh, this kid's pitching today. Like we're going to be here for 3 friggin' hours. And then Brian would show up, we'd be like, oh, we're playing Brian today. Like we didn't even care that he was going to strike everyone out because the dude's just he's throwing strikes. You know what I mean? So he's got a great family who's super supportive. And then really encouraged him to like get into the gym and start to, like do that stuff. And then at the same time, he just took to it. He like really enjoyed. I think he enjoyed too when he was younger, seeing the older kids that were training. Okay. And so now he's a junior in high school. He's been super consistent with it, and he's on the other side, like the sort of I don't want to call him a meathead, but he's really into training now. To the fact that he was at 5 a.m. this morning when I showed up at the gym, he was sitting in the parking lot. So
wow.
You're on this is a different level kid now. That he's turned into that though. You know what I mean? He wasn't that kid his freshman year or 8th grade, but now he is because he's getting older and more mature and he realizes what he wants. So that motivation for him is there. It's inside him. But yeah, that's some crazy strength for that size.
Yeah, I think there's always a like turning point. I think when boys become interested in girls, that training starts to become more of an interest. But
no doubt.
What they need to know is you're going to get more compliments from the guys than you are from the girls.
Yep. No doubt about it.
So in his development, what was kind
Yep.
of that inflection point where training started to diverge? I mean, I know you mentioned the age, but like what was it about him? Was it a physical thing? Was it a kind of mental or an emotional maturity where he's like, okay, now I see where I want to go and what I want to accomplish in this sport, and I'm old enough to handle the training? Is that when it started to get more serious?
Yeah, I think so. I think when he really started focusing, like he knew that baseball was going to be his focus,
Hmm.
and started playing more summer ball and stuff like that. I think he was surrounded by good people too that were like, listen, like this stuff can beat you up over time. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like the best thing you can do is like start to get in the weight room and start to get stronger and start to get a little bit more resilient and work on things. He's never had like any real setbacks because I think so far he's really been consistent with what he's been doing.
Yeah.
So and then I just think over the years it's been like first it was like freshman year he came like 2 days a week, and then eventually he's like, oh, can I come 3 days a week, and then
Hmm.
like over the last year and a half or so it's been like, all right, well he usually comes almost every day, and that's but then we started to delegate like, all right, like today we're just gonna loosen up. He's
Right.
he's he's also learned the importance of like just a day to come in and move, open
Yeah.
up, do some stick stretches, hang from the bar. We'll do some arm work, things
Yeah,
like that.
man.
He's sort of like really likes that. I think he likes it's almost like putting money in the bank, for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think baseball guys get that, right? You can't get on the bump every day and throw gassers.
100%,
So,
100%. You know what I mean? So I think that's where he feels like it helps him a lot is just to be there consistently.
yeah, it's amazing. Jeremy, we covered a lot of ground, man. We're going on an hour. I want to be respectful of your time. I could probably talk to you for another 3 hours. I'm so interested in this stuff, and I just crave to have the creativity that you have. But I do want to hit you with just a couple like quick outro questions
Yep.
that I think people will get some value out of. So, all right, what social media is a monster. It's a machine, a hungry one at that. Like, what is the one thing with the youth athletes that is just so in our face that we need to just stop doing?
I would say, this like we talked about earlier, this like push to like do training like older adults do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this push to like have everyone thinks like you see it like a 8-year-old doing heavy squats and everyone loses their mind and like
Yeah.
on social media like everyone's like, yeah, it's awesome. Like there's just hundreds of
Hmm.
thousands, like there's so many posts and everyone's like this is the greatest thing in the world. And if I showed like a video of a kid doing skips, which is like super developmentally appropriate for his age, and like
Right.
I get like 3 likes,
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's like
so
this
frustrating.
sensationalism of like social media. It drives me crazy, but whatever. I just keep doing my thing, and keep working with the kids I got.
Yeah. All right. Underrated movement skill or the game that every middle schooler needs.
Well, I think I posted it today. I don't know if you saw what I posted, but
I haven't.
uh, obstacle like tag. So it was basically you play tag, but obstacles spread around
Okay.
the play space. For me,
Yeah.
like I look at that and I'm like, man, there's so much going on here that's exciting. Because you can
Hmm.
run around things, you can jump over things, you can use the obstacles to your advantage to not get tagged, to not get chased down. So there's a lot going on as far as like I mean, obviously regular tag is awesome too, but
Yeah.
you throw in these obstacles and it just changes the game. So if anyone check out my social media posts, my Instagram post from today, you'll see that the obstacle tag is just fantastic.
Okay. Love that. All right. What is one thing you'd ban from youth training?
Band. Oh, you know what I don't do? One of the things that I see a lot of too is like things like bear crawl races or crab
Okay.
walk, like any type of like crawling
Yeah.
races. I think are bad news because you're just like slamming your small bones of your wrist and your elbow and your humerus into your shoulder, like and I don't think that's a great idea to do. I think if you're going to race, you should just race on your own 2 feet, and not like I've had kids have issues like get hurt doing
Yeah.
doing that type of stuff. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
no, but it makes sense on the surface. like that's probably like, yeah, let's have the kids do bear crawl race. And then I just got into it a little bit and realized like I had a few kids ding up their wrist and their elbow and shoulder, and I was like, that's probably not a good idea. We're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's
No, I
what we
get
don't
that.
do.
Okay. What are like the one or two best phys ed books we should get a hold of?
It's called Physical Education: Building the Foundation, and it's by a guy named Paul Gabbard. I think it's Paul Gabbard. That
Okay.
definitely the last name is Gabbard. Yeah, that's a fantastic book. That's an elementary PE book, but there's so much stuff in there that you could extend to older ages. Is really good. And there's another really good PE book called Children Moving.
Okay.
That's
Awesome.
that's a fantastic one. That one has this like wheel. It's like this wheel of movement inside in it, and it covers like every type of skill that you could ever, want a kid to learn, and how it all like interconnects. It's pretty awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Awesome. I'm
Children
gonna
Moving is a
definitely
great
check
book.
both those out, and I'll link to them too in the show notes so people can find those. Anyway, man, where can we find out more about you?
Yep. So I'm always, the two places are Instagram and X or Twitter, whatever people still call it. But that's pretty much where I put most of my information on there. You know what I mean? So and then I have a one like little product I made. It's a games course, athletic development games course that I sell to people who want it, and then some programming that goes along with it, just like simple stuff that especially if you're a parent coach or a parent, or you work with kids and you want some type of like actionable athletic development stuff that's not too hard to implement. That's what it's for. So
Cool. Yeah, I'll make sure I get that link from you because I might be
yeah,
interested in that too. I
sure,
think I'd looked for it before and couldn't find it. So, but man, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Like it was such an honor to finally get you on. I know schedules are tough, but this was
crazy,
incredible. So
awesome.
Super appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me on. If you ever want to do it again, I'm game.
If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to rate and review us with 5 stars only. Then subscribe so you can get all the latest updates.